It started in China, of course. Then the epicenter shifted to Italy, which now has over 100,000 cases. Let's bring in other countries too. Here we compare every country on the same timeline, with day 1 being the first day it reported 100 cases. We can see that the spike in cases in Spain, for example, was even sharper than in Italy. The one bucking the trend has been South Korea. It avoided a spike by doing one thing better than others.
Experts praise South Korea.
South Korea is now doing more than 10,000 tests per day.
By March 1st, South Korea had tested 100,000 people.
While the US started on a very similar trend, it's seen its cases rise dramatically in recent days. It is now the country with the most cases in the world, topping 160,000 as of Monday. Italy, China, and South Korea. Again, on a timeline that allows us to compare them, with day 1 as the first day that country had more than 25 deaths. The death toll in Italy passed 5,000 after 23 days. It is now double that. But let's look at Spain. Its curve is even steeper. It reached the 5,000 mark in 19 days. After almost 3 weeks, the US has over 2,500 deaths, which puts it on a similar trajectory to France. But to understand the effectiveness of a country's response, we need to compare not just the number of deaths, but if the rates are rising or slowing down. This time adapted to show the rate of change over the first 3 weeks. This way we can see if a country succeeds in slowing the death rate. Let's start with South Korea, where a trace, test, treat strategy has been widely praised. The number of deaths there doubled every 7 days. In comparison, China saw its number of reported deaths double every 3 days, but it succeeded in slowing that trajectory in its 3rd week. So far, European countries have not been able to slow their pace down and are seeing their numbers double every 3 days. The trend in the US has been similar until now, but the rate has increased in recent days. It's certainly nowhere near the slowing down seen in China, South Korea, or even Italy lately.
One country that appears to have succeeded with the coronavirus where others have failed is South Korea. It's managed to flatten the curve of new infections, and it's done so without China's draconian restrictions on movement and without a large-scale lockdown. And we'll be looking in more detail at the success they've had in South Korea around testing, the speed and efficiency how they've been doing that, coming up in the program in a few minutes' time. So do stay with us for that. Well, as we've heard, the key to South Korea's success has been speed and an early push towards mass testing, rigorous contact tracing and mandatory quarantine for anyone near a carrier of the virus. The country has a population of 51 million and it manages to test more than 20,000 people each day. It's set up more than 600 testing sites nationwide. The Director General of the World Health Organization said he had a simple message for all countries: test, 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 saying that without it, it's like fighting a fire blindfolded. But not every country is hitting the same targets as South Korea. Here in the UK, there has been testing of 960 per million people. Italy has conducted 386 tests per million, and the United States just at 314, whereas South Korea's rate of testing has been 6,000.
So South Korean government, from the day 1 when they had the first patient diagnosed, which is going back to the January, government officials met with representatives from several medical companies to urge them to immediately develop a test kit, promising emergency approval. And this goes back 2 months. This was happening in January. And now the country can produce up to 100,000 kits per day. So testing capacity from the day 1 has not been an issue in South Korea. I think that is a very foundational step that the government has taken from the very early on, intervening in controlling the virus spreading in South Korea.
Julie, is it really easy to get a test? Because we've seen pictures of drive-through testing. People can just come in their cars. If you have symptoms or you're worried, can you access a test quite easily?
So, many have reported that it is very easy to get tested in South Korea, but it's not like just because you're not feeling well, you're under the weather, you can just go in and get tested. There are certain steps that you have to take. They advise you to call the hotline number first to go over your symptoms. And they would ask you if you have been into a hotspot areas, whether that's in Korea or abroad. And they would go through these questions and advise you to either stay at home and see how you feel in the next 2 days or come in and get tested. So in order to get free testing, these are the steps that you have to take. Or if you've been notified that you have been in close contact with the confirmed patients, then whether you have a symptom or not, you have to go get tested. So it's not like it's widely available that anyone can go in and get tested, but it is readily available, and you can just call in the hotline and you will get the information that you need.
Spreads across the West, new signs of hope in Asia, and in particular South Korea, where there's been a dramatic turnaround. The number of infections skyrocketed there from dozens to thousands in early March. But now, they're reporting the lowest number of new cases, just 64 in a single day, since their peak weeks ago. And they didn't lock down entire cities. Experts say swift action from the very beginning was key. That included social distancing, contact tracing, widespread testing, and they were prepared.